We don't want to change the character of Burgaw, right? I mean, people want to move here. We want to remain small town. We want to keep the character, but we also want those little bit of extra things. And so those extras don't come unless you have additional rooftops. You may have had a starter home here, but where do you go next from that, right? And so we need to make sure that we have some housing that fits, many categories.
Yeah. Okay, the Gentry Podcast. I know that you will be loving it. We here to break it down so that you start to understand your local government. Who are the leaders? Time to get active, do something about it. Dealing with jobs, the workforce, and affordable housing. Motivate and inspire. Elevate, take it higher. For the next generation. Knowledge is power for your community. Giving you the info that you really need. Time to make a change and a difference. Tune in, don't miss it. It's the Gentry. The Jentry Podcast. The Jentry Podcast. Making a change, switching it up.
Hello, and welcome to the Jentry Podcast today. We have an incredible guest. I'm your host, Jonathan Mason, and with me I have Olivia Dawson, who is the mayor of Burgaw, North Carolina. She is a mother. She grew up in Burgaw, and she is a self-proclaimed and obviously shown hands-on mayor. Olivia, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Jonathan, for having me this morning.
The pleasure is all mine. Now, before we get onto that, your hands-on nature, I have to ask, what is the special sauce of Burgaw? What makes it the best place to live in the United States?
Well, again, I agree with you. It's the best place to live in the United States. Special sauce. I'd say, we love blueberries here. And we're all about blueberries here. And that's kind of what we do. A lot of our events around, and we're a good town year round, so that is what makes us special. Again, we're small town character. We're centered around a courthouse square. Everybody knows your name. It gives you that Hallmark feel. So those are the things that makes Burgaw.
Love that Hallmark feel. That gets me juiced up. That is so cool to hear. Now, I've heard the special sauce from the actual sauce, blueberries, to the people in the field. Now, I always say you can learn so much about a town by their leadership. So take me all the way back to childhood. What was childhood like? Did you always know you wanted to get into a career of public service?
It's funny you asked that. No, I mean, did I grow up saying, "Oh, I'm going to be mayor one day," or into politics? By no means. I don't have family, and I don't come from a family that's in politics, and had no idea that I wanted to become a mayor one day, or that I would jump into politics. I knew I had a yearning to do something I say something grand, and something for my community, but I didn't know what it was until later in life when I learned that I really liked giving back to my community and all the involvement, and that I liked government, volunteering as a resident on other boards, and then at some of the other positions that I was in. That is when I started having the calling of, I want to be mayor one day. And that is how I got here.
Wow. So I love that. It seems like you led with service from serving on boards to serving your community, and that led you to being the mayor. Now that is awesome. Now, kind of shifting to the X's and O's, what are some of the strategic priorities, or I don't know if you guys have done a comprehensive plan recently, but what are the major priorities of Burgaw right now?
So major priorities, as we all know, across North Carolina, across the United States, we're growing. And so, of course, it's all the things, water, sewer, infrastructure are main components of what our towns need here in Burgaw and across North Carolina to be able to handle growth and to be able to sustain ourselves for the future. A lot of that's old at this point as well, right? And so we have to make sure that we go back and take care of those things, replace the old, but, add to the new. So water, sewer, infrastructure, as I said, growth, those are all, coming at us really quickly. We've held growth back for quite a while in Burgaw, but timing is everything, right? And so, I think it's, coming to be our time that we're going to have some good growth, but it's also helped us be able to manage it. But when it comes, it's going to come, I don't want to say full force, but it might be a lot at one time. So it might be overwhelming, but we're planning for it. So, being mindful, putting into place a strategic plan for the next 20 years, what it'll look like for, the next 3 to 5 years, what it'll look like 10, 15, and then to 20. So that's a big priority right now, is just taking a look at that, kind of our roadmap, right? of where we're going. It's a guide. It's not always going to happen accordingly, but that kind of stuff excites me. So I'm excited to work on that a little further and then to put it into action.
Wow. That's a great challenge to have, but as you know, I may be preaching to the choir here. It is a challenge. So controlling growth, making sure that you're still maintaining what the town sees as important, updating infrastructure. So I want to kind of break that down a little bit. So for the viewers that aren't familiar with Burgaw, can you kind of explain where it is and what's kind of pushing that growth that's coming through to the town?
Absolutely. So Burgaw is located as you're driving to Wilmington. We're down the street from Wilmington. So we're eastern North Carolina, almost, next to the end of I-40, exit 398. So we're again 25, 30 minutes from Wilmington at most, depends on traffic. Right. And so again, we are located in Pender County, a rural community. Pender County splits into, we hate to say this, but like split by I-40, western side of Pender County and the eastern side. Eastern side has the beaches of Surf City and Topsail Beach. And Burgaw is, again, home to the Blueberry Festival, kind of the hub. It was built on the railroad community or built from a railroad community, the start of that. And so, again, we're the county seat of the county and for Western Pender County. So all of our smaller communities surround Burgaw. So we serve as the hub to those communities, and then our city when we need to go, to a larger mall and movies and things that we don't have here. Wilmington is where we would go. Granted, we are about 45 minutes from Jacksonville as well, down Highway 53. So very accessible, and I would say, I don't say centrally located, but located very well that it doesn't take you long to get to Jacksonville, Wilmington, Leland, Brunswick County area from where we're located.
Wow. So it sounds like there's quite a bit of draws. You guys are right outside of Wilmington, which is a huge pool. You have the Blueberry Festival. Now, as you guys are preparing for the growth, one thing that you stated was infrastructure. And across the nation, between infrastructure and housing, I hear those two things every podcast I do. But when you guys start to think of the infrastructure necessary for this growth, have you guys start to put some pen to paper on what that would look like and how you may tackle that infrastructure, or is that planning process still coming?
No, I mean, most of us before, all of us in leadership, I say leadership or in government, we all know that you have to have a plan before you can put a plan into action, right? And as you should be. But yes, I would say most of this is already pen to paper, or we're doing things that will have this pen to paper. So your water and sewer master plan, your stormwater master plan, all those things that help guide how you need to make those improvements to infrastructure, right? So those are in place and are almost finished being in place. And again, the strategic plan and our capital improvement plans, we'll be updating those here in the next month or so. And so again, those will be in place. We have some of the other things in place, but we're bringing them up to date. So those will be in place and be our guides to how we grow in the future. And circling back, Burgaw I say we're a bedroom community. We are, but that's why it's crucial that we have a little bit of growth and some additional housing. However, Burgaw we have a great workforce here and we've got a many jobs. So we've got, as I mentioned, we got the downtown revolves around the courthouse square. So we've got a courthouse, we've got the county offices, we've got the main school offices, we've got a prison, a jail, a hospital. We've got a lot of jobs here, not to mention a lot of industry. So that are hidden gems that people don't know that come from Burgaw, right? And so we've got a lot of opportunity here. Some that's already been established, and a lot more that can happen in the years to come.
Wow, that is incredible. So it sounds like you guys have already started the planning process on the infrastructure side. Now, one thing you did bring up was housing, and I'll circle back to industry in a second. We hear across the nation that there's a housing crisis, or there's an affordability crisis, or attainability crisis. What does housing look like in Burgaw? Are there any maybe missing pieces of the housing stock that you guys are looking to increase?
Yeah, absolutely. So, You mentioned this too, just circling back a little bit as well, is that we don't want to change the character of Burgaw, right? I mean, people want to move here. We want to remain small town. We want to keep the character, and that means a lot to me. And that's what we're doing with some downtown revitalization and such. But we also want those little bit of extra things, right? And so those extras don't come unless you have additional rooftops. But again, housing is crucial, and we say that we have some infield housing, which means some infill located in town that you're like, "Oh, I didn't know you could somebody was gonna sell that and put a house there." Like, those are being developed, but we don't have a variety of housing that offers a little more apartments or a little more townhomes, and then, of course, um, you know, you may have had a starter home here, but where do you go next from that, right? And so we need to make sure that we have some housing that fits many categories. I mean, yes, affordability, attainability. I think attainability is the biggest thing right now. Then, of course, affordability, right? And so I think that's a struggle as well as how affordable is everything going to be? That's going to be determined, but attainability, again, is very important right now. I would use the example of I want my kids to be able to move back here, right? And be the next generation, but they've got to have a place to live. They're not going to live at home, right? Or they may we need them to live in a separate location. So I have a younger brother who's in his 20s. He doesn't want to live in Wilmington and other places. And so he needs an apartment. And so we need to make sure that we have a variety of housing, working professionals, and not everybody wants to mow grass, right? So that's where apartments and townhomes come into place. And then from there, they have an opportunity to move into a neighborhood. So again, I'm excited about it. I know it's people don't like change and people moving in, but I consider it just even for the locals here when our kids grow up. And that isn't going to be long from now that some of those kids are going to be moving out and they can live here and still go to school locally if we offer some opportunities. Otherwise, we give reason for them to leave our community because we're not offering all the resources we need to be able to keep them here to provide for them.
Wow. I think you hit a few nails on the head. Oftentimes, when we think of change and differentiating the housing stock, I'll just say communities can sometimes meet that with pushback, and there are probably valid reasons on those points from housing prices that being one of their biggest assets to maintaining the charm of a place. But the point that you made is usually the one thing that can change that is we want our children to be able to grow up in our community, and that is so important. If you don't have the housing stock, you don't have the jobs, the industry, then you won't be able to see your children and potentially your grandchildren grow up. So I think that is so important that you tease that out. A follow up question I do have: how have you guys addressed? And not saying Burgaw has any of these issues, but sometimes I can see that there is sometimes a disconnect in zoning or the length of permitting time, and that can be one of the reasons that sometimes differentiated housing stock is not created. How do you guys think you are doing as far as incentivizing and being admittable to new constructions and development of those infill housing that you were speaking of?
Yes, so we're definitely, and those are a lot of factors that play into that. We're definitely trying to improve those processes and make it easier. And again make it too right now is making sure we have enough staff in place, right? Because it keeps them busy. But again, improving all of those processes and then communication improving the communication and transparency, both with those here that are wanting to invest and develop, but also with our community, right? So that we can just communication goes a long way. And so it helps people understand. So making sure that we try to explain that as the best we can, um, especially to residents and things that don't quite understand it and don't like it. But I wouldn't say that we're doing a whole lot of incentivizing but I think there's a lot of incentive to move here. And now we're opening up that incentive to move here. Again, it's been held back for quite a while. But again, I think it would have been great a couple years ago. It was something I would have loved to have seen in my last 4 years. But as I mentioned, timing is everything. So I think I'm hopeful in the next 2 years, we'll see a little bit of progress. And it opens up again that incentive and the opportunity of why it would be great to invest here and develop and bring these additional opportunities to town. So again, additional opportunities is bringing housing, rooftops, then that opens up opportunities for, you know, more restaurants or filling our storefronts, right? And so, because that brings folks that want to invest here, so entrepreneurs, people to actually work it, right? We forget that we might want a restaurant, but it takes the folks to own it, to run it, and then to support it. So, it's a full circle of how these things happen. Um, so, did that answer your question or more?
No, definitely. What I heard was you guys are taking a look at the major issues that could hinder development, and you were candid, and I hear this quite often. It's staffing and capacity, and we'll get into that when we touch on a few questions later. So sometimes it takes a little more time, and not needing to incentivize. I think that that brings a different level of confidence, and that brings or speaks to the power of the community that you've helped run and build over these years. So no, you absolutely answer my question, and you dovetail nicely into my other question. Across the nation, I always hear that at times, not always, but at times, public servants can be asked to do more with less, and I think that is very tough because budgets aren't always getting bigger, and staffing capacity isn't always matching some of the needs of what needs to be done. So I kind of hate the term, but I understand it. But can you kind of speak to a time that maybe you had to get innovative, get scrappy, utilize technology, work with people in your region to actually do more with less?
Well, let's see if I can think of a time, but I mean, it definitely is something we do. I mean, we try to maximize what we have, right? So that we can do more with less. Because again, across the nation, all of our communities across North Carolina, we're all asking for funding, right? Money. Like, how do we make, especially as we're talking about water and sewer and infrastructure and things, those costs are so high, right? And I mean, to some degree, a lot of things are, they just cost so much these days. And so we have to stretch our dollars as much as we can, and then we're wanting to save our residents money too. And so we've really got to find the balance. But I think a lot of times too, this may not really answer your question, but people want to see their tax dollar, their money working for their communities. And so something I say I preach, is that let's take care of the things that folks can see, make the improvements, because it makes people feel better that knowing they're seeing, you know, their tax dollars at work. We're beautifying the town, we're paving streets, we're fixing sidewalks. But while we're dealing with the water and sewer and things that the people aren't really seeing at the moment, making a strategic plan, capital improvement plan of how we're going to grow and the things that we're going to need to pay for, new fire trucks and, public services equipment, they're seeing what we can do while we're trying to plan what we can't do at the moment, right? Because we've got to come up with the money. But it's also making sure that we're maximizing opportunities out there, whether it's grants or, incentives for our towns and things that, again, that we can maximize our dollars and our efforts more. I don't know that I have a specific instance at the moment, but, um, we're all definitely trying our best to work hard and make sure that we're putting our best foot forward in all that we do.
I think that is so important. As a community member myself, I love when the leaders are just being good stewards of taxpayer dollars, being good stewards of the communities that they're running. So I'm sure your community members feel the same. Now, when I think of doing more with less, again, sometimes I think of technology, and that is another buzzword across the nation: artificial intelligence. But it doesn't even have to be that. Are there any pieces of technology that you've used to sometimes help, or that staff uses to help and just to kind of multiply the effort that they're able to put in?
Systems our town systems are always coming up to make things easier and better, right? And so things that we were maybe doing, I say in person or, forms and things, just integrating all those things online because it is, easier and it saves money at the end of the day, right? On paper and all those kind of things. But again, improving those processes, working with those companies that do that for it or integrated into our systems, right? But I mean, I'll admittedly say that I do love some chat GPT as well and AI because, I can knock out several things very more, much quicker than if you had to sit there and write something and it took you, 30 minutes to an hour or something. But making good use of them when necessary, right? To make our jobs, I say a little easier, but that we can do more, right? We can get more in a day done if we make some of the processes simpler. And then it doesn't require maybe as much staff time and things, and you can get more things accomplished throughout the week. Because we all know that every day goes by so quick, and I'm about how much can I get done in a day, right? And um, so again, just making sure that we're utilizing technology at its best, but also not. I don't want us to, we can't completely rely on it all the time. We have to make sure that we can think for ourselves and that we have backup plans if technology doesn't work.
I think that is so smart. And yes, we've seen many instances in which technology doesn't work. Now, I have a fun question
Okay.
that I like to ask. What is a piece of technology you would build? For me, I would build something that helped me edit podcasts, that automated outreach, but was able to bring my actual self somehow because I love to get to know people before bringing them on the podcast. So if I had that technology, that would be perfect for me.
I don't know. I don't know that I've ever really thought about, oh, what would I build? But I mean, I agree with that. If I could take what you would like to have and make, where maybe just add to it to, I like to use social media, right? I mean, to connect, so I guess if, as long as there's a way to just improve what we're doing, right? The things that speed up the editing process of your podcast and things like that. I need to get back on it. Did a podcast. We're doing a podcast in tourism not long ago, and something we'd like to get back to. But that is the hardest part, is editing it, right? And so, again, I'm not sure that I answered your question, but I think I would take what your idea is and maybe build on it to make things, again, simplify the process of being able to connect resources like podcasts and social media and outreach, to make it better.
I love that. So I have one more difficult question, and then we are off to the fun last chance games.
Okay.
So the last difficult question is ever not. I don't say for ever since, but recently there has been a shift in economic development, and it now focuses so much on quality of life. And one thing that I think of as I have a young family. I have a 20-month-old is childcare in education. How does that play into the future of Burgaw? Do you guys feel like you have enough childcare? You have a great focus on education, and then what does that look like going forward into the future?
So those are things that we don't manage, right, as the town and mayor. Some cities do, some towns do. We do not. We just assist and advocate and help where we can. But being, the mayor and a mom with kids in school, I'm also doing some substituting. So education means a lot, right? And as it should. And um, we want well-educated children and, when they graduate high school to come out of Pender County, out of Burgaw especially, right? And so making sure that we're plugged in where necessary. We have a partnership that we have two officers that serve as SRO officers in the two schools that are located in our city limits. So I think that's great that we have that place and that involvement in our schools. But just staying tuned in and find out how the community can help. Right, Burgall's a good place if the schools here are great and vice versa. If our schools are great here, it's gonna make, Burgall and folks want to continue to stay here and to move here, right? And to put their children in there. I'm an advocate for public schools, and I want us to make sure that we're not, pulling our good kids out to go. I say that, and I don't mean, take it lightly, or I don't mean anything by it, but, sending them to private schools or just homeschooling them. Like, we need to grow our schools, accordingly, like to make sure that, I guess, we've how to say this. Anyways, I want us to make sure that we're just putting our best efforts into public education into our schools here locally. And then when it comes to childcare, again, that's a huge need. There's never enough childcare to go around for. It doesn't matter how big your city is. There's just seems not be enough childcare. Again, not anything that we, hands on, but it's just being that advocate piece of making sure folks know that there's a need here for those who maybe, again, back to like entrepreneurship, if they're wanting to open up a daycare, or if there's a company, the chain ones or something like, hey, it's a great place to do that here. there's a need for it. Just making sure that you're sharing that need and wherever education falls into place, whether it's for our schools, K through 8 high school, or it's for our child care, because that's where it begins. I mean, education begins at child care when you know, they're 1 and 2 years old. So we have to remember that. So again, I circled around a little bit. I'm an advocate for it all. That's being mayor. You have to be an advocate for it all. And as an elected official as well, but as mayor especially, you're talking about housing, childcare, education, water, sewer, roads, your trees. I mean, you're talking about it all, and you're advocating for it all, and trying to make sure that it's all balanced well within your community.
It's a balancing act, and I love what you said. As an elected official, and especially as a mayor, you have to be an advocate, and I think that is so true in so many different areas. From obviously childcare and education, we need that, but across the spectrum of the different needs for your community. So I appreciate that. So, Mayor Dawson, you are officially off the hot seat of the next segment, our last chance games, and that comes from improv. So don't even think about the question. Just the first thing that comes to your head. I'll give you 3 questions, and then after the third question, we'll stop and we'll go back to the top to kind of discuss it. If you want to change it, if you want to explain it, but the goal is to just think of the first thing that pops to your head. So the first one is, what policy looks good on paper but is nearly impossible to execute?
Oh goodness, I think that's a harder question than you asked me about. Policy harder to execute. I don't know. Goodness, I don't know. I have an answer for that one right off the top of my head.
No worries there.
Next one, we'll have to go back to that one.
What role do you not have on staff that you wish you had somebody fill that role?
Okay. Let's see. Who have I recently said we needed? Just quickly off the top of my head, small town, we don't have anybody that really focuses on economic development here. So, we've got planning, we've got you know, administrative staff and things, but we just don't have anybody that's focused on economic development. Not that we might not need it right now, but we eventually will. But it's even for small town. We have to consider how our towns grow. And so economic development to us, of course, looks different than economic development in Wilmington, but we do need some focus on that. We do have a chamber of commerce, but sometimes you need someone in the town office to help work with the other partners to help grow some economic development. But economic development entails so much, right? I mean, housing, jobs, workforce. Then it goes, it relates to schools and childcare and such. So that is something I hope in the future that we can add as we continue to grow. And we add some more jobs here and maybe some more industry.
Awesome. And then the last question before we circle back: what is the hardest truth you wish that residents or community members knew about some of the trade offs in local government?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I don't really know this answers your question first as you want, but there are a lot of rules, right? I say government's tricky sometimes, right? And so they have to understand that as elected officials, what seems like, well, they shouldn't be doing that. We're held to the Constitution and ordinances and state laws, right? And so sometimes that's out things that we can't. I don't say we can't control, but it's we have to follow laws and rules as well, and then procedures. So sometimes it's things out of our hands, right? And so I think a lot of times residents, citizens, folks from all over, they just forget that. And it's much different when you're in the seat, right? It's easier when you're not in the seat and you maybe don't know everything. But when you're in the seat, the same applies whether it's I'm in the seat or you're in the seat, right? And so we stick to our morals, but we also just have to make sure that we're following the rules, right? Following the laws. So I think sometimes that's something that is challenging and folks don't always know or see. And then sometimes the time, right? It takes a lot of time. I enjoy it. I get to as much things as I can. And sometimes I have to remind myself that I can't do it all and be everywhere, right? And then as mayor, yes, I have to cheese for a lot of photos, right? And so, but I enjoy it, but it is part of my role. So I think most people understand that. I mean, they want people to be seen. They wouldn't want me not to be seen, right? But understanding, all that comes with being an elected official, and especially maybe the mayor.
I love what you stated from first, the economic development in small communities. That is so important. Knowing where you're going, especially when you're experiencing growth, having somebody on staff to do that would definitely be super beneficial. So I love to hear that. And then there are rules. Somebody I spoke to on the podcast said that government people, the thought of government is that it moves slowly, and she reframed that. We move deliberately because there are rules, regulations, and it's not a it's not like a startup where you want to rip and run and fail fast. You're dealing with people's livelihoods, people's lives. So I like that you teased out that there were rules. So I have two more questions, quick questions, and then we get into the segment where I'm giving you money and you're telling me what you're going to do with it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, let me just piggyback on what you're saying. I like the word deliberately. I haven't really heard it that way, but I had a previous mayor too who said, government runs slow for a reason, and and right, it does. And so, and I agree with that, and I've learned that as well. But I'm also one of those like, well, let's not drag out what we don't have to drag out, right? Drag out the things that need, like, let's the process and procedure and government work slow on the things we need it to, and then the things that let's not overthink the things that we can do immediately. Anyways, just wanted to make that plug because I have to I say that quite often as well.
Oh no, I totally understand this. What is the biggest long term challenge that can't be fixed in one election cycle?
I mean, yeah, I think that's been water and sewer. It's back to it takes time and process, procedure, funding, right? And so sometimes you can't get that done. As I said, I thought we would have made some leadway in my last 4 years on things, but it's all about, as I said, timing and then the process and procedure for that. So, I do serve for my term is 4 years. And so that gives the opportunity to get a lot accomplished. Those who have to run every 2 years. And if you've never done it before, you're just learning it in the first year or two, and then it'll be time for you to run again. So it takes government a good year or two to get some things done or accomplished. So luckily, having 4 years to do things, it means I can get a lot more accomplished. But I think water and sewer, not that it's complicated, it's just probably one of the challenging things that we're all dealing with, and it takes a while to work through.
That makes a ton of sense, and that gets us back to how we started the podcast. So that infrastructure truly seems like a big theme. Now, my last question before we get to the money is, what is the biggest unforeseen impediment to housing development? Be it utilities, infrastructure, not enough land, permitting, anything like that. Like, what do you think is the actual bottleneck?
For us, it's just access to the utilities, right? It's the water, and sewer, the infrastructure. It's where it's didn't get put in, enough many years ago, and so now it's updating that or adding more so that we can utilize what we have. We have plenty of water here. We just have to, we've got plenty of sewer capacity. It's just running the lines to make that happen, right? With those developments here, we don't have. We've got, I say, enough land to, to do what's been permitted to do so or passed. But, Burgaw can't go but so much as well. So that's going to be a challenge in the future for us.
Okay. That is a nice way to look at it. It's goes back to the utilities and the infrastructure. And I talk to communities across the nation often, and they just don't have land. So they're trying to figure out ways to just increase density because they literally are landlocked, be it by mountain, it being it by other communities. So it sounds like you guys have a fixable solution there or challenge there.
Yeah, we have, and again, we're all going to have some sort of challenge around that. We're all, yeah, figuring out again, how do we grow or where do we, that growing, do you annex in folks so that where you can. So yeah, that's a challenge for many of our communities, and it will be a challenge for us probably, in the next 5 or 10 years.
Makes a ton of sense. Now to the fun part. This is a three-part question.
Okay.
The first is, if you had an additional $100,000 in the budget, would you what challenge would you tackle? What role would you tackle? The next question is if you had $1 million added to the budget, what role or challenge or issue would you tackle? And then the final is if you had unlimited budget and unlimited staff for an entire year, what would you do with that?
Wow. All right. So if I had an extra $100,000, personally or in the government? Where are you talking? In town? Are you
Great,
asking in town
great
for
question.
town money?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, I was gonna say, I mean, I'm talking town, but I don't know whose pocket it belonged to. We had an extra $100,000 here in town. What we do with it? We've been working on. I know I just answered this question the other day myself, saying if I had that much money, I'd do it. My biggest thing lately was just like replacing some sidewalks and paving some roads, and so an extra $100,000 would allow us to do even more than that. And that's, you're like, oh, why would you spend it on that? I mean, that's important. We need people to be able to walk safely. Um, we want to make sure that, like, hey, we're a walkable community. And so, how we do that is improve our sidewalks, right? And then our roads, people care about roads. And so, there's a couple little roads that need to be paved. And those two things are expensive and costly. So, I'd say, yeah, if we had an extra $100,000, we could do a little bit more with that, and residents would be happy. And then we could put other funding other places. If we had an extra $1 million, oh, we could do a lot. We could do quite a bit. We are getting ready. We're doing a splash pad campaign with the town and our Parks Foundation. So trying to raise funding for a splash pad because we don't have any water features here. We don't really even have pools, and so we're wanting to put a splash pad in one of our parks, and so that would help pay for that pretty quickly. And then we've got a local golf course land that's been sitting a little dormant, and I think that would give us some money to invest in that to keep it, um, as green space and do something creative with that. If that was if I could have it my way, right? We had that extra money. I think most importantly, a lot of that would go to the splash pad, and then the things, maybe the smaller things in town that we would need um, to bring up to par a little more, in our parks and things, and then, I mean, that would suit us well for a couple years, right? And unlimited funds and staff for a year. Oh, yeah, we could get a lot done. Oh, yeah, we could get a lot. I mean, all of those things that I mentioned, um, and, I mean, we, um, do some water upgrades, infrastructure upgrades, some paving, finish some sidewalks, downtown revitalization, some murals, the splash pad, some economic development where we invest in maybe some property too, where we could help grow. But yeah, I mean, we could do a lot. And it was suited. If we could get all that done in a year, we'd be suited for years to come if we had an unlimited budget and some staff to make all those things happen in a year.
I love it. From adding roll or sidewalks to creating a splash pad for the young people to knocking out the big one, the infrastructure that is necessary to continue to grow. Dawson, it has been a pleasure. I've learned a great deal, and you've been able to truly share the heart of your community and where you're going into the future. But before we depart, are there any last words that you maybe want to leave community members, people watching, or young people?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yes. So I'll just add, I didn't run on this, but I am the first woman to be elected for Pender County and of Burgaw especially, but of Pender County. And so that means a lot. Again, didn't run on that. I ran on the fact that I love my community and I was already invested and they knew my work ethic, and I'm here to make things better. And so, but real proud of that. I mean, also fairly young. I'm in my 40s now, but when I was in my 30s when I started, right? And so, if I can be an inspiration to you know, to the young kids and folks around here, that's great. As I said, I'm substituting, and I love going into the high school. And they're like, "Why is the mayor here?" I'm like, "Today I'm your substitute teacher," but I did, go to school here, and so just being an inspiration and a mentor where I can. And I have kids that are teenagers now, 12 and 14, and so just means a lot to me, and I know how much it meant to me, and then again how much it still means to me being able to give back to the community and to learn from those who I learned from. Also, I do really do love being the mayor and working for my community, and I appreciate those who pray for me and support me and encourage me. and like the things that I have been able to do. But working with a great team, I don't do all this by myself by no means. I'm always like, where can I help? I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty, but we've got a great team, great staff, a great board, and we're working together to make sure that we're accomplishing all this together. So I'm really excited about that. We're all going to have our ups and downs and challenges, and we sometimes disagree on things, and that's the way it's supposed to work, right? And we can't let that affect us. And but I appreciate all the things that I get to learn and be involved in, and that makes me grow as a person as well.
That I heard trailblazing, being hands on, and gratitude. Those are all things that I think can inspire the next generation of leaders. And it sounds like it's never too early to start. So I think that's a great place to leave off. So, Mayor Dawson, I'd like to say thank you for myself and for everyone here at Gentry. We appreciate you taking the time. We know you are very busy in your community, but we appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing the knowledge and sharing the inspiration that you provide to your community, to our community. So I'd like to say thank you. And then to the viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, this has been the Jentry Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Mason. But additionally to that, we've had Mayor Olivia Dawson from Burgaw, North Carolina. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you. Take care.